wanted to create the kind of solution that I wish I'd had at university, a safe marketplace which matched students to accommodation and supported them through that journey. Drowning in 6,000 plus weekly inbound applicants. So they can't possibly get back to every single student applicant when they're inquiring to give them a really good experience. They lack the infrastructure to manage that workflow. Just having a clarity so you're not managing it within a messy inbox. You can see everything laid out. And the best way to articulate it is it's like the HubSpot, but for the lettings market. The funding environment isn't kind of diverse enough in every respect.
Hello and welcome to the Developers Club podcast. I'm Ben Wilson, your host. Today I'm joined by Hannah Chapatte, the founder and CEO of Hybr. Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Nice to have you on this beautiful hot day.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning and how Hybr came about. So take us back there and how did it all come together?
Of course. So I was a student at University of Bristol. I studied liberal arts, so I majored in English and history languages. And in my final year, I thought I wanted to do consultancy. I thought anyone smart goes into kind of consultancy, law, banking. And I absolutely hated the process of all of the kind of consultancy assessment centres. I've never felt so stupid in my life. And I got to, I think, one of like the final assessment centres. It was like a day in the life. And I just thought, this is not for me. And I was fixated by how awful my experience was when I was a student at Bristol. I didn't know where to go to find housing. I didn't know who I could trust. And the more I looked into the market and saw that there were 3 million students in the UK alone, growing population 2% year on year, market worth about 13 billion in terms of
13 billion.
13 billion, how much students pay in rent every year. Like huge underserved market overlooked. And so wanted to create the kind of solution that I wish I'd had at university, a safe marketplace which matched students to accommodation and supported them through that journey. And then about 2-3 years in, realized that the reason why it was such a chaotic and stressful experience for students was because that the letting agent and the landlord are drowning in 6,000 plus weekly inbound applicants. So they can't possibly get back to every single student applicant when they're inquiring to give them a really good experience. They lack the infrastructure to manage that workflow. So that's why we built out the lettings management platform side of the marketplace to ensure that letting agents and landlords had a system that allowed them to, or empowered them to deliver a better renter experience. So trying to think through that two-sided solution.
Wow, it's very, to be able to seal that at such a young age, very impressive. And obviously you were a student at the time, as you said. So I guess that gave you a bit more of an insight, certainly. And how do you, that must have clearly helped you in the process.
Yeah.
I guess. What did you find the benefits of that were being a student at the time?
100%. I didn't start the business until after I'd graduated, but I knew firsthand.
You had the knowledge from before.
Exactly, and I'd lived through that for the last kind of 3 years of how difficult it is. Walking up and down the high street, speaking to lots of different letting agents, being ignored when you make an inquiry on Rightmove, Zoopla. You have no idea why no one's getting back to you. You don't know if you've been rejected. You don't know when you've got a viewing coming up or if your offer's been accepted. Yeah. There's lack of transparency.
Absolutely, I think we've all experienced that. And so when did it go from being just an idea and when you thought, actually, I'm onto something here? Like, what phase was that? What stage was that?
So I kind of chucked myself fully into it from the moment I graduated.
As soon as you graduated, you were ready to do it?
Yeah, exactly. I kind of just started writing up business plans and thinking through the model. And I had a very scrappy, basic kind of Squarespace website. And I knew I understood the kind of renter perspective, but I needed to better understand the pain points from the landlord and letting agent perspective. So I just started cold calling every single landlord and letting agent I could find online. Exactly, and just pitching and better understanding what was their experience on the other side. Because obviously I lived the student side and I needed to understand what it was like being an owner of student accommodation.
And was this the first sort of entrepreneurial thing you'd ever done, or had you done things when you were younger that were entrepreneurial, or was this your first venture?
Definitely my first venture. I'd been involved in a lot of ambassador programs at university, and I think that was a good chance to...
So you're confident and...
lead schemes and understand how important the student community was. So every brand wants to acquire a student. It's the first touch point in their consumer life cycle. Such a valuable kind of cohort. Oh. And so I'd seen even more how valuable students were, but kind of overlooked and maltreated at the same time.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, and in terms of funding the app, I mean, how did you get an app off the ground? How did you fund it?
So it was bootstrap the first kind of 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And that was because we were just generating revenue from the get-go. So, I mean, I was basically just a one-man band. So I was paying for myself £20 for a Squarespace website. Yeah. And I had found these two great kind of technical consultants who came on board for equity to help me build out the platform. And we were just getting paid on commission to match students to properties. So grew out the business in Bristol. And then after I had gained traction, because who was going to back a 22-year-old female solo founder who had no previous experience, I knew I had to gain a lot of traction to prove I could kind of get to profitability at a certain scale, show that I had a lot of demand and supply in the marketplace before I could raise investment. And then I went out to raise from high net worth individuals, a lot of them from property backgrounds. And then more recently, I've raised from VCs and larger angel syndicates.
And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit. But you mentioned there that investing in the female. Do you think it's harder as a lady to get investment? Do you still think there is sexism in this sort of industry?
Yeah, I feel like the data speaks for itself. So like 2%, the kind of classic fact is like 1.8% of VC funding in kind of Q1 or Q2 last year, almost as kind of the average from last year, went to women. So
Crazy.
The data set that kind of speaks for itself. I think it's an issue of not enough women are founders and entrepreneurs, as well as the fact that the funding environment isn't kind of diverse enough in every respect.
Yeah, well, it's sad to hear. But hopefully it's changing, and hopefully that pace of change will continue to happen. But I just noticed you said it, so I thought it's something to pick up on, and it's good to get your opinion on it. So going back to Hybr, so what sets you apart from the other rental platforms that are out there? Because there's a couple. Yeah.
So in the market, you have classified sites like the portals, like Rightmove, Zoopla on the market, and then student portals like accommodation for students, uni homes, and a few of the international players. They focus on lead gen, so just about getting inquiries.
Sure.
And then you have property management systems, Repit, Alto, Agent OS, 30 plus others.
I've used Repit before as an agent years ago.
Yeah, and those are property management systems that focus on the journey post-move-in, like great complex compliance, accounting, maintenance systems. We focus just on the pre-move-in, so it's about managing your listings and inquiries, automating qualification and viewing scheduling, and plugging into your property management system, plugging into all of your classified sites.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of just to our listeners and viewers, how the platform works. So do you want to explain it from a tenant perspective and also from a letting agent's perspective?
Of course. I'll start with the letting agent perspective, just from the audience, I'm sure. So if you manage or own a large portfolio or any kind of size portfolio of student and young graduate accommodation, then we would either integrate into your property management system to pull your listing feeds onto Hybr, or you upload your portfolio onto Hybr. You can then push onto Rightmove, Zoopla on the market, Hybr, uni homes, and any other channels that you want.
And you pay for those portal access. Hybr is essentially the agent on those portals, is that correct?
We can be, or we ingest your inquiries. So you have your own accounts with those. If you're a letting agent, you'll have your own accounts on Rightmove, Zoopla on the market.
Of course you would.
And we ingest your inquiries into Hybr.
Yeah.
And then you manage all of your inquiries within your dashboard. And then we automate pre-qualification. So we qualify the applicants for you based on your vetting. So you can be as strict or as flexible as you like. And then we have a automated scheduling system that schedules diaries based on the applicant's diary and your team's diary, optimizes for the best times, and it schedules back-to-back viewings without you even having to contact the tenant. Wow. So it's all about saving you around 8-9 hours per listing, which is around £150 to £200 per listing of time and team resource saved. And just having a clarity, so you're not managing it within a messy inbox. You can see everything laid out. And the best way to articulate it is it's like the HubSpot, but for the lettings market.
And presumably then you will take a percentage, if you like, of that agent's fee. That's how it works.
No, from listening to a lot of the agents' feedback, everyone prefers to have a kind of SaaS fee, so a subscription, so that they know how much they're going to pay. It's not going to fluctuate over time.
Okay.
Helps with people's P&Ls.
Yeah. And you've got guaranteed money coming in as well.
Exactly, works both sides.
Yeah.
And then on the applicant side, so on the student renter, young graduate side, we have the marketplace, so they can find us on Rightmove's People on the Market or any other channel, as well as Hybr's marketplace, search and get matched to all properties that suit your criteria, and the 100% transparency around whether you're a good fit, if you're rejected, why, and you can seamlessly book a viewing online and track your viewings in your dashboard and your offers.
Wow, so it's quite a significant platform. It can do a lot of things. It's very, very clever. You obviously spend a lot of money on IT, I would imagine, over the years.
Yeah.
What are the sort of 3 core features about, if you had to pick a few things about the platform that you think are, make you market leaders in what you do, what would they be? Yeah,
it's definitely our focus on being the letting solution, streamlining letting. So that would be around inquiry management, automating vetting, or we call it qualification, and automating viewing scheduling. Those are the 3 key features.
And you mentioned earlier that you save a number of hours per listing, and that obviously quantifies into a financial amount.
Yeah.
How exactly does it do that again? Just recap that, because that was quite interesting what you said. So that anyone who's listening understands exactly that aspect of it.
So a huge amount of time is currently wasted by landlords, letting agents, when they are manually listing on multiple marketing channels.
Fine, you're bringing it into one.
And when you're having to manually call through, even if you're not manually listing because you've got that set up already, all of your inquiries land within your inbox, and your team has to manually call through every single inquiry, vet them over the phone, they don't pick up, chase them again. How do you track who's been chased, who needs chasing again? Have you cross-sold them to other properties to recommend other properties? And then you have to manually chase them to turn up to the viewing, manually chase them for feedback, manually chase them for documentation. It's very time consuming. And this whole time you're trying to track, who's been seeing which properties, how can you maximize the chance of every applicant becoming a long-term renter, and also give them a really good experience. So that's the way that the system was set up. That's why renters have such a bad experience, because the agent is set up to fail. They just do not have the time and resource to give them a really good experience. Yeah. So we design systems for the renter.
It's very clever.
Because we want to make sure that the renter always has a really good experience of that agent's brands.
And presumably you're, with AI being as big as it is at the moment, you're embracing that. Has that been a big thing for the business?
Yeah.
Improving it, I would think, tenfold probably.
Yeah, definitely. It's been part of each of these features.
Really amazing. So just sort of moving on a little bit, talking about trends and innovation. So what are you observing in the student accommodation and young renters market at the minute?
So it's completely changed. The student market has completely changed. 2 years ago it was or maybe even a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it was very much about drowning in inquiries. And the last year and a half has been around maximizing every inquiry. And there's not enough inquiries coming in, there's less demand. And the cycle.
What's causing that, sorry?
Couple things. Firstly, last year we saw a 20% decrease in international students.
I was going to say, yeah.
And that was because of a lot of the uncertainty created by the Conservative government around visas post academic, post being at university, and allowing dependents, and also just a lot of the race riots, which probably doesn't make the UK feel like a very safe place. No, it wouldn't be where you want to send your baby if you're seeing it online. And then there's also, previously in the past, when you went and looked for accommodation, you would see a scarcity of accommodation. Now there's so many houses on the market, students are really taking their time. So in the past, by February, most of the market is empty. There's not much student accommodation left across main Russell Group universities. Now there's a lot more stock, so people are really taking their time. We're seeing a huge volume of bookings across late June and July, because people are actually copying the London market and deciding to rent a month or 2 months before term starts. Previously, everyone would be renting 10, 11 months before term starts. I think there's also just been a shift in terms of Gen Z are quite, I will take my time, I'm not going to be forced into accommodation, to search for accommodation before I'm ready. I want to take my own time and not be pushed into it. So
basically what you're saying is it's more important now than ever to have a platform like Hybr on your side to maximise things for you if you are looking to find students.
Yeah,
basically
definitely.
to take up your accommodation. No, that makes total sense. And obviously the Developers Club is a club for young developers, as you know. So we're very much, I think, in a buyer's market at the moment, in terms of, especially in London, we are. And how can Hybr benefit us as developers, do you think?
Yeah.
In a tougher market, I mean.
Yeah, it's a very tough market right now for developers in terms of those that flip and are used to just being able to sell those assets. And so we've been having lots of conversations around how can developers look at retaining hold of those assets, waiting for the market to pick up, and actually use Hybr to manage the leasing. So for the first time ever, hold on to those assets, rent them out, list them on Hybr, get the best tenants in there, and then sell them. Have a great rental yield come through, and then sell them when you're ready, not get rushed into it, and be able to show that you've got 100% occupancy across the portfolio, so maybe even get a better price for it. So it's helping developers think about actually having those operations in-house, and just basically changing up their strategy.
Because it is frustrating as a developer myself. It is frustrating when you finish a project to when you sell it. Say it's normally 3 months, but in this market it might be 6 or 9 months. If the market's tougher, you've got this amazing flat that looks great and it's just sat there empty.
Yeah.
It might be costing you 10-15 grand a month on a bridging loan, and it could rent. In central London where I operate, you could be letting it for 10-15 grand a month, but you don't, because you're worried that the tenant will not look after it or whatever. But it's really wasteful having this amazing asset just sat there. So what you're saying does make sense, of actually going, well, let's sort of cut our losses, stop trying to sell it, put a tenant in there, and then go again in a year's time when the market improves.
Exactly. And also, there's still a massive kind of imbalance between the number of people looking to rent and the houses available, especially at an affordable kind of mid rate. So it's a really great renters market. Yeah. And one thing that we're really passionate about is making sure that developers are developing and building the right type of assets. So a lot of the time these decisions are made just by gut feeling. And what we have is great booking data on not just where are people searching for, but what do they end up booking. So we can look at, let's say, Bristol and say, okay, everyone is looking for 3 beds in Redland, but they end up having to rent 2 beds and 6 beds because there's not enough 3 beds.
Redland's lovely.
It is lovely. So you're able to actually make sure that you're not just looking at where they end up booking, but what were they originally searching for.
Interesting.
And then you're actually making informed decisions when you're looking at developing assets. So you're not just continuously building more very expensive 1 beds, but actually seeing that the market wants more 2 to 4 beds.
Well, look, data in this day and age is highly valuable, and you guys are sitting on a huge amount of it, I would think, about this very specialist area, which is great. So just more widely, what are your thoughts on the sort of future of co-living, PBSA and HMOs?
Yeah.
It's a very open question, but where do you see the market going?
There's definitely we're seeing a rise in standard of the HMO market. So they're being kind of forced to step up with EPC and with more regulation. And you've got more kind of investors coming in and aggregating a lot of the HMO market, PRS. So we're seeing that standard being raised, which is great, but there's a concern there of obviously not raising it too high. That means rents rise, because that's always meant to be the more affordable part of the market. Yeah. And we're seeing that PBSA is having to take a step down. We can't have PBSA owners continuously building these very, very expensive 1 beds that target the kind of 1% of the market that and keep on building these large cinema rooms, tennis courts, what do they call, like selfie boxes or whatever, that are underutilized.
Extreme.
And they are massively underutilized and just make it all more expensive to build. So we need kind of PBSA coming down a notch, HMO coming up a notch, and hopefully the market starts meeting a bit more in the middle. Interesting,
because I'm not an expert at all in PBSA or HMOs, so it's quite interesting to hear that. So you want one to come up and one to come down.
Yeah, and hopefully. I think the co-living model has been hugely successful, and it originally was going to be more for the short-term market, but we're finding that, a huge volume of students are really wanting to go more into the BTR and the co-living market than the PBSA, just because the way that they're built, it's much more enticing. You've got 2-3 bed studios rather on these than PBSA, which typically can be on these long hallways small that units. Can feel a bit prison block-like. Whereas the way that co-living is set up in BTR is much more modern and attracts students more. So I think that's what everyone's been learning, and PBSA is venturing more that way.
Absolutely. I actually went to school with the CEO who set up, or the guy who set up the Collective,
Yeah.
which it's not around anymore. I don't
No.
think it's a shame. I think they overexpanded, but they were 10 years ago he was doing it, and I remember seeing the size of some of their sites going up in Acton. I think it had 600 beds, which is just vast. You wouldn't think there'd be that many people that would want to take them, but it's popular, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Really popular.
And out of those, what would if you had to invest in one, what would you choose? Do you think? A bit of a wildfire question.
I'm very much for not having prescriptive tenant types.
Yeah.
Meaning, I think there's a huge advantage to build to rent because you can have students. Obviously, sometimes there's limits to them. The numbers are capped, but you can have students. You can have undergrads, postgrads. You can have professionals. You can have seniors. So you're able to really maximize interest, and it's really pre-selected by the tenant. The tenant decides where they want to live. The renter decides where they want to live. Whereas PBSA is often restrictive, and sometimes when the numbers sometimes they'll be really high, maybe sometimes they'll be lower, and they're unable to capture that young professional market, which is a huge shame. And I hope we see that extend so that there's more flexibility in the PBSA market. Fantastic. But I think, I'm very much I would say want to invest in more multifamily PRS, the more affordable part of the market. Okay,
so more multifamily PRS. You heard it here first. And let's talk about challenges and lessons. So what's been the most difficult thing about building Hybr? I'm sure there's been lots and lots. Is there one particular thing that's been tough?
I think definitely the hardest part is being able to bring the best people together to create a really strong team and culture. I think that's very difficult as we're going through lots of different stages of growth within an early stage startup. Being able to track the best talents and being able to create that really kind of the kind of team culture that you need within the very hard graft days of building out a business. I think that's really hard to get right.
To be honest, I don't think staffing ever gets any easier. Like throughout, as the business grows, we struggle in our businesses with it. But when you get great staff, it's amazing how one good staff member can really transform a business. But it's also amazing how one toxic staff member can really damage a business. And it's so important that you get people. And I guess the idea is you're trying to find people that are better than you at these certain things they do, because you don't want to be micromanaging and gatekeeping 100%. Everything.
Yeah, people that challenge you and bring that high performance culture. It's so important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And has there been a moment where you thought, oh, this is all too much, I'm not doing it, I'm going to go and be a consultant instead? Or you just thought, no, this is the life for me?
It's actually interesting. I've had many, many breakdowns, but I've never ever thought about quitting, just because I'm very, very passionate and I'm about what we're doing, and I have a very clear vision that I feel like we're on the path to accomplishing.
And you're obviously very driven, so got to get it done, haven't you?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's a new day, as they say. We've got a lot of younger listeners that listen as well. So what would your advice be to them if someone wanted to set up a PropTech? It's quite a niche thing to do. So what would your advice be?
Setting up a startup in property and real estate, or any kind of startup. My advice would be to first just make sure that you're really passionate about the problem and the space, because you're going to be in it every day, and really validate that there is a big enough problem. So looking at the market opportunity, the total addressable market, and be really kind of strict with yourself on making sure that market really exists. So validating with as many customers as humanly possible. I think you want to have 100 close conversations with that customer to make sure they're validating that pain point exists. And then just go for it and just focus on what you need to do, working back from the annual targets, the quarterly targets, the monthly until to the week, and just build and get out there, because that's the only way you're going to learn.
Great advice, I think. And I've been obviously done some research about yourself, and I know you've done a multi-million-pound valuation round recently. Is that right?
Yeah.
So where are you going to go from here, do you think? Another round, presumably in a year or two?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going with that?
Yeah, planning to raise a Series A at the start of next year, and that will be to further expand across the UK, and kind of go deeper into that student market, really ensuring that we can also go back to creating a really strong marketplace, all-in-one solution for student renters.
Amazing. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure you'll absolutely smash it. And I mean, one of the things I read is that you were mentioned in Forbes as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? That's very impressive.
Yeah, I think my chance of now being convicted for a felony has gone up if you're in Forbes 30 under 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. But no.
I hadn't heard that statistic. Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No. Yeah, it's great. It's really amazing to have that brand exposure for Hybr.
And also, you were in the Times and Urban Living Impact as well.
Yeah.
So, you've been everywhere, really. So it's super impressive. And what does the recognition mean to you? How does it feel to get that recognition?
I think it's just a sign of what's to come. I think we're in very early days, and it's about what we're setting up to achieve versus what we've achieved today. We want to have much bigger impact. But I think it shows that the market is desperate for innovation and that we're doing something different and we're challenging the status quo, and that's what I'm really proud of. Yeah,
no, you should be, absolutely. And what's the one thing that you wish people better understood about building a startup like Hybr, if there was one thing?
That it's incredibly taxing and tough, and it's a lot of pressure to put under yourself, but also you have an incredible purpose. And
freedom, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're your own boss.
Well, I'm not sure about what you think about the word freedom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just good for everyone to know before they go into being an entrepreneur, before they're quick to judge any early stage founder, just how difficult it is.
Yeah. No, it's certainly not easy being an entrepreneur, that's for sure. And we've talked about hard times at Hybr, but what about, has there been one, maybe you'll say Forbes 30, I don't know, but what's been the best thing about doing it? If you had to pick one thing in your time with the business?
Yeah, definitely not any accolade. Definitely around customer feedback.
Yeah.
Like when you have students that come to you and say that they were kind of ignored and rejected by other platforms, and then they managed to find match to the best accommodation because of your solution, and they felt really supported that journey. There's nothing better than that. And from great feedback from a small kind of lettings team that were really drowning, and with Hybr have managed to kind of deliver a much better experience to their renters, and also just enjoying their job because of the platform. Like that direct feedback, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were actually taking it back to TDC, you were at the Future of Development conference, you spoke there,
yeah,
I believe. And what stood out to you about the event? Talking about us for a little bit now.
Yeah, no, it was great. I think it was all about the renters bill and the impact of the renters bill and what that means for developers. So I think it was great to have Ben from the NRLA on that, who's super knowledgeable on the topic, and just thought it was a great form of information for aspiring developers.
Yeah,
on what
I actually haven't been. I've been a bit naughty. I have to go next year. Yeah, otherwise I'll have Shiro and texting the guys after me. So looking ahead, what's next for Hybr?
So we are preparing now for the new rental season for the student market. So
September.
Students start looking for September 2026 accommodation from October.
Wow.
So we are preparing.
Very organised for students.
I know. So we're launching with around 120 plus agents in October for the next rental season, for them to manage all of their inquiries and viewings on platform. And then we'll be looking to rapidly scale to 200 plus agents by kind of the end of the year. And then we'll be just kind of continuing to grow and kind of extending further into the young professional space, because it's a very similar proposition for students and young graduates living with their friends and needing to kind of have a solution there, and those kind of student agents that also deal with professional stock.
So Q3 for you every year is just like you can't go on holiday.
Yeah.
Can't go on holiday at the end of the summer. You must be working 7 days a week, I would think, if you've got that many agents to deal with.
Yeah.
Tough. And going outside of the business, like personally, what drives you?
The mission, for sure, in terms of really wanting to create a world where renting is painless for students and kind of young professionals alike. And really believing that the way that we solve that problem is by building this lettings platform that empowers agents to deliver that better rental experience. So the mission on one side, and also I'm very passionate about being a solo female founder in the UK, which is, I want to create more kind of role models for other female founders. I don't think that there's enough people to kind of look up to. So yeah, I'm passionate about being that future role model.
I think you already are one, it seems. And in terms of in sort of 5 years' time, where do you see the business? Where do you think you'll be? What's the aim?
Yeah, so we want to be embedded in every major student operator, and then expanding more into the young professional space, and as well in going into build-to-rent and co-living operators. And then we'll be looking to expand into Europe or the US, as well as kind of continuing to develop that student marketplace proposition. The
US market must be a huge market for this, I would think. Because I don't know what the percentage are of people that go to college, as they would call it, in the US versus the UK, but it seems like it's higher, is it? More people, would you say, go to uni in the US percentage-wise than in the UK?
I think it's quite similar, but I actually don't know. There's 20 million students across Europe, so there's a plenty big enough market.
So you're going to go there first and then go across the pond. Cool, well, good luck with all of that. And just sort of to close on, I mean, what advice would you, we've touched on some of it already, but is there any other advice you give to young entrepreneurs starting out? I know we talked about specifically with regards to PropTech, but maybe wider advice on good practice in terms of getting a business up and running, work ethic, is there anything like that you think would be good advice?
I think key advice is always say yes in the early days to opportunities, in terms of go to that random meetup, put yourself out there, say yes to meetings, go and reach out to other entrepreneurs in the space, because it's all about building your network, and you never know where kind of one door leads to another door, and it's really, network is everything when it comes
network
to...
is net worth, that's what they say,
there
isn't
we
it?
go.
That's the old...
Future partnerships, investors, potential clients, and then second key points, and also actually not being protective with your idea. I think a lot of people get scared about discussing their idea before they launch the product, but you need people to tear your idea to shreds. You need people to challenge your idea and spot things that you might have not have seen. And the final thing is, before you choose your co-founder or your founding team, making sure that you're really aligned on what does your culture mean to you, what kind of culture do you want to create, what kind of work ethic. Define those things early, and it'll make life a lot easier.
I think that's great advice. And in terms of people getting hold of you or about Hybr, finding out more, how can they do that?
So if they're a student looking for accommodation, hybr.co.uk, and if you're a developer looking to understand the platform, or letting agent, student operator, you name it, landlord, come and speak to me directly on LinkedIn, or again, just go onto the website and you can contact us directly.
Amazing. Hannah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Ben Wilson of Knight James, and this is the Developers Club podcast. Thanks for joining us.